obviously there are so many different kinds of problems that I'm passionate about, but what is the problem that I feel like, is going to kind of give me the energy to wake up every single morning, right? When you may not have a paycheck, when you may not have other people doing the work for you, when you feel like it's such a grind, when you do not feel like working at all, what are the problems that if you were solving, I would actually feel that passion day in and day out? That was super important to me. Now, in the US, 80% of people are living paycheck to paycheck, right? Most people do not have, this stat is rolled around everywhere. Most people do not have a meaningful amount of money saved for the case of emergencies. You'll see that most people don't even have $500 saved in the case an emergency strikes. So to me, it was a problem worth solving, right? Like America, this land of opportunity, this economic superpower around the world. But look at Americans, everyday Americans, kind of toiling day in and day out, awaiting their paycheck and not really be able to do anything meaningful financially because they just have so much debt. Right. And so to me, that was a culmination of a couple of, three different things come together. I felt like I had a unique insight on how to solve those problems. I knew a technological differentiator in building that problem. And I felt very passionate that this is something worth doing. Right. And this is something that goes beyond the paycheck, goes beyond I want to be super successful and make a lot of money. That thing is helpful, but it's never going to be the thing that makes you wake up every single morning. There needs to be something much more emotional drive associated with that, right? So that's what gave me the fodder to leave Twitter and then start working on an AI super agent for negotiations at a time when most people didn't even know what AI was, right? So I think those are the kinds of things that you need to kind of look very closely at what you're doing. Is it a passion project, and are you passionate about it for the longer term? Because ultimately you're the first investor you need to convince, right? Mm-hmm. Because ultimately nobody gives to the company more so than the founder, whether it's in time, resources, the headspace, the constant nagging of, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do 1,000 different things. That is what is going to happen to you once you become a founder. So you better really, really, really feel passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah, I love that so much, because you're also reflecting a lot of what investors look for, right? Which is what is the unique insight? And then if this is a unique insight, is this the right founder market fit? Yeah. Right, which is what you're talking about in terms of what's your unique advantage in doing this particular idea. And then there's also this element that I think is very, very soft, but it's the most crucial, which is how gritty is this founder, and are they going to pursue this particular problem to the end? Because a lot of being a founder too is not giving up, because you're just constantly failing. Yeah. Well, I know we'll get to hear more about Niural later, but before we get there, can you tell us more about when you first got involved in crypto, and what led you to, go from Twitter to Harvest, which is all fintech, right? But not necessarily blockchain. So we'd love to hear more about how you got into crypto and what led you to apply this to apply your passion and your time and your investment in this particular space.
Yeah. So I had been building Harvest, and Harvest itself was, like I said, it was a very mission-driven company. It was obviously, a venture-backed company, for-profit company that was building agents for negotiation. But at the heart of it, right, the mission that we were being driven by is, if we build a good technology, we will be successful, and alongside it, people are going to have reduced debt. Now, that's something that you can get behind, right? So that was the passion that was kind of fueling our everyday work at Harvest. After I sold Harvest, Ultimately, the reason I decided to, kind of leave Acorns after it had been acquired, after it had acquired Harvest, to starting Niural was to really think about what do generational companies mean, right? So as a repeat founder, you always think about, you don't tend to think about liquidity events as much because been there, done that, not a problem anymore, those kinds of things, right? But you always think about what is going to be your dent in the universe. If you were to spend the next 10 years of your life building something, is it something that you're only once again, it goes back to passion. Why is it that you build a company is important? The intent behind why you do what you do is important. So to me, it was really about, there are so many problems that are in these antiquated markets, like payroll, for example, that have stayed unsolved for some time. But this is a problem that is going to continue to, be a problem for not just years, not just weeks, not just years, but for decades and for centuries. Right? People will always need to get paid. And there's always going to be laws and compliance and regulations that happen around the world. In fact, the complexity behind them is only going to increase. And what I saw was, having built a fintech company before where we were doing a lot of dealing with a lot of consumer debt and helping negotiate those kinds of things, I realized that the entire financial technology industry is chasing after one piece of data. And that data is always related to how much is this person getting paid? Is this a salaried person or a contractor, right? So that person's paycheck, all the data related to paycheck is what the entire industry chases after. That financial identity is so tied to how the society thinks who you are. Right. And then I realized, the companies that have the best ability to be the stewards of this data are the companies who handle that data at source, the ones that are creating it, the payroll companies. But then the payroll ecosystem is controlled by these literally dinosaurs like ADP, 89-year-old companies that were built before, the mainframe was invented, before the internet was invented. And, there's a certain way that antiquatedness of their infrastructure and their processes means that regardless of how amazing new age technologies come about, they cannot truly actually embrace those kinds of technologies because they're going to have to literally strip out everything and build anew, and they do not want to be startups, right? So because of that, I realized that there's actually a massive, massive, massive opportunity in really revolutionizing payroll and global workforce functions. Now, a lot of people tend to think of payroll and just think about paychecks, right? But payroll is only one component of global workforce management. It is actually, something that I define as a business operating system for any business, right? So think about, when you start a business, there are two primary vendors you're going to need, right? Number one, these days, if you're on the cloud, you're going to need your cloud vendor, right? Or your kind of technological stack. Let's think about it that way. And then the next thing is from an operational vendor or an operational stack perspective, you're going to need a means to pay yourself and the people who are going to help you build this product. Right? So from the get-go, you're going to need somebody who can help you process payments, handle compliance, and then help you as you grow the company, right? And currently, the way companies do it is use a bunch of different vendors, a bunch of different companies to solve those problems. Despite how small or how big you are as a company, you are currently using multiple different companies and tool sets to manage your workforce. Now, that doesn't need to be the case, right? It just so happens that you have to use these tools because an integrated tool does not exist, right? So the number one thing is being able to help you handle everything in one platform, right? So that was one critical insight. The second critical insight is, well, why are we doing this, right? We are doing it to build something that is generational and a product that can truly last beyond me, right? Beyond my existence. And so in order to do that, you cannot just build with the tool sets of today. You have to have a vision for what is tomorrow going to look like. What is technology going to look like 50 years from now? And this is, the reason I am so bullish on blockchain. And people call it crypto, people call it Web3, people call it blockchain, but ultimately the technology that is default global, default efficient, and default inexpensive, that's the crux of the technology that is going to outlast any kind of inefficient technology that exists today. So that's how I, it was obviously a discovery process, because I wasn't really looking to build in crypto because I believed in the kind of crypto speculation, or crypto was in undergoing a bull market or anything like that. I took a lot of time to understand, does this technology make sense, and is this technology something that will improve over time and can be something that can be used globally by billions of people over time. And over time I came to that conviction and decided to make that a significant part of Niural.
Wow. There's so much that you talked about, I feel like I could respond to. Like, for instance, I used to be a product manager at Intuit, which also has a lot of payroll. And yes, you're right, is totally antiquated. But you're right. I think it's really powerful too to hear that you're in crypto because you believe in blockchain as the infrastructure. And I think that's a really good leeway into your presentation that you have for us. So we'll go over your presentation for the next 10 to 15 minutes, and then we can go into some Q&A.
I think I've kind of talked about the problem a little bit, but let me tell you about how the problem actually manifests itself in crypto, right? Now, whether you are a crypto company or not, I tend to look at crypto, in general, as people building different kinds of different kinds of companies to solve different kinds of problems using an underlying blockchain technology, right? So you could be a data company, you could be a trading company, you could be, an arts and media company, you could be a content creator. Ultimately, what classifies as crypto is just like, you could be any kind of business around there. However, the nature of crypto is such that, it requires decentralization. It inspires distributedness in a company. So what you see here is obviously how the breakdown of how we tend to work in crypto, right? Most crypto companies, right, work remotely, 87.8%, and then the rest either through a hybrid mechanism or daily in office. Now, once again, let me give you an example of a very small company and then of a large company, right? So a very small company, let's say a 10-person company, could be, when they're distributed, they could be either distributed around the world or distributed in the US. Doesn't matter where you are distributed in some capacity. Now, if you are, let's say, incorporated in Delaware, you may have physical headquarters in Austin because that's where the founders are. You have your sales team in California, and you have a tech team in Estonia, taking that previous example. So in that case, what you're going to have to do is figure out how you pay all of these people. Now you have to pay in the US and internationally. How you align with labor laws and compliance in these different places, right? So that means you have to understand state laws of Delaware, Texas, and California just to be in the US. You have to figure out how insurance works in all of these states. And then you also have to make sure that you are able to file all of the different kind of compliance requirements and regulatory requirements in all of these states based on payroll rules or labor law related rules. And you have to do the same thing for Estonia. Right? So there are those kinds of problems that even a very small company may face. Now think about what that problem, how that problem gets magnified as your company grows to hundreds of people or even maybe thousands of people. It's unmanageable. Right now, there's another thing that is kind of intrinsic to crypto, or very native to crypto. Crypto has really brought about different kinds of entity types, right? Because crypto fosters this distributed nature, the ethos of crypto and blockchain is decentralization. It has given rise to so many different kinds of entity types that did not exist before. Right? DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, entity-less or entity-related DAOs, right? You could have a DAO without ever having an entity of your own. Now, if you are thinking about doing a tokenization or whatnot, a big part of that is, really having a community around you, and typically a foundation that looks at that community. Right. So there are DAOs, there are foundations in, certain kinds of jurisdictions that are friendly to the foundation or blockchain structure. It could be Marshall Island, it could be Cayman, it could be BVI. Those kinds of entities exist in multiple different kinds of jurisdictions. So you have to really be able to handle those kinds of entity types. And then finally, there are operating entities, like, whether you have DAOs or foundations, as you grow, you'll also have different kinds of operating entities from which you're going to pay your vendors, you're going to pay your employees, and you're going to handle, certain kinds of legal and compliance related stuff. Right. So what that means is, if you are in the blockchain space, you're going to be used to, or you can come to expect to have to deal with multiple different kinds of entities, many different kind of countries, so many different rules, 12,000 plus jurisdictions in the US alone, right? So many currencies, whether they are fiat or stable coins or some other token. Right. And then, of course, because of the nature of crypto, you may be on one L1 versus other. You could be working across multiple different chains. Even in the Ethereum ecosystem, there's so many different L2s that are going to be powering your work every single day. So then how do you handle these things? Right. That's where, if you were using a traditional payroll system, they don't understand what a DAO is. They don't understand the structure in which foundations work with DAOs versus operating entities. They don't understand even a distributed workforce architecture. They don't understand token vestings, things like that. So those are things that traditional payroll systems don't know and do not have the capability to even build internally, because building for this requires building with a very, very different kind of infrastructure and have very different understanding of the world. Companies that were built 80 years ago are not going to be able to solve this, right? So companies like ADP trying to build a smart contract, guess what? Does not work, right? So it is for these reasons a company like Niural exists. Right now, Niural serves both Web 2 and Web 3 companies. Niural is powered by agentic AI, and it is built for global workforce management. We support both Web 2 and Web 3 companies because we tend to understand Web 3 better than any other company out there. Not even most, better than any company out there. So what does Niural do for Web 3 companies specifically? Right? Let me go into that. It truly understands what a decentralized workforce means. It understands the concept of chains and tokens and smart contracts and custodial versus non-custodial wallets and how payments need to be made in crypto, all the while making sure that you are 100% compliant from payroll, labor laws, and international jurisdiction laws. Right. That's a lot. That's one of the things that, a lot of crypto founders forget, right? Like, you can be working or building in crypto, but at the end of the day, you still have to abide by real world rules, right? Where you are located, what state you are in, what state are your employees in, what labor laws apply, how should payments be handled, what are KYC AML laws, what regulations exist around payments of any kind. Those are all the kinds of things that you need to be able to do, regardless of what industry and whether you are working in crypto or not. right? But you will not be able to handle all of these things seamlessly unless you have a platform that can guide you in understanding the nature of the business and the industry that you're in. So Niural's Web3 component helps you do just that. It helps you do things such as run US payroll, pay your international contractors, hire employees, even without setting entities of your own through our employer of record. And then it helps you do everything else that comes in the middle of it, like how you do expenses, how you get access to health insurance, how you keep track of time for your hourly contractors, things like that, all from one system. You do not have to go through 5, 6, 10 different tools to do these things. Niural offers one unified system. Now, let me zero in on certain kinds of things that we can do, right? So let's say you're a US company. We have a full suite of offering for whether you are US-based or international. If you are US-based, you have access to our US payroll module, and then PEO and non-PEO module with access to top health insurance benefits. We work with some of the largest insurance carriers in the US, and we provide access to top-notch benefits that you would never get access to on your own, because you would never qualify to qualify for those sizes or for those kinds of plans because of the distributed nature of your business. Now, second, being able to work with companies to be able to hire in 150 plus countries without you having to set up your own entities. Niural is an employer of record in 150 plus countries, and you'll be able to hire employees anywhere in these countries without setting up your own entity or administrative kind of foundation and infrastructure in those countries, because Niural will be the employer of record. Now, that's how you take care of your employees, whether they're in the US or they're internationally. We also provide global payroll if you, in places you have entities of your own. And then there's the second part of the ecosystem where, okay, that's how you take care of employees, but what about contributors, contractors, or even vendors? Right? You can pay them all from the Niural system. We have a full compliance system where it will automatically generate invoices to keep audit trails very clean for you. We have integrated on and off ramp in the product itself. So you could pay in fiat and your contractors or vendors could get paid in local currency, or vice versa. Right? So fully integrated fiat and crypto rails for 150 plus countries. And then support for the kinds of companies that you may encounter yourself converting into, right? Whether you are tokenizing and you have a foundation and operating entity, whether you're a DAO, or whether you are any kind of plain vanilla Delaware C Corp, will be able to help you regardless of what kind of structure it is, what kind of size it is, and what your needs are. And we are very, very, we are very crypto friendly, and we understand crypto extremely well. So you'll find that in our platform, should you choose to do Web3 related payments, we have support for 7+ chains. We have support for 100+ local currencies. We have integrated on and off ramp, and you have the ability to do payments in a multi-sig environment by just loading up our app within NosiSafe, and just a bunch of other things that I have not mentioned here as well, but you'll be able to handle both your crypto and fiat payment needs from one platform. Now, that is a super important kind of thing to mention, because what we have also seen at Niural is most companies, even though they say that they're crypto, their needs tend to be a mix of fiat and crypto. There is not a single crypto company that we have encountered where they just entirely deal with crypto, regardless of the size. And we serve a lot of really, really amazing large-sized companies in the decentralized landscape. But typically, you'll have both dual needs for both fiat and crypto. And being able to do that without you having to, on and off ramp from another system and deal with multiple vendors is a huge time saver. So in terms of features, right, we are built for the future of work. So you need payroll, we got it. You want a professional employment organization that can give you access to top health insurance benefits. You do not have to take any kind of administrative burden of registering in multiple states or figuring out how to do payroll tax registrations, things like that. Our PEO is, a highly sought after product. We do employer of record in 150 countries. We handle global payments in fiat and crypto. So you name it, whether it's health financial benefits or automated compliance, or you want to be able to just hire a contractor anywhere in the world, but you do not have a contract in hand, you can just come to Niural and create a contract and send signatures to your contract literally within 2 minutes from our platform. So Niural has been built with a lot of intent around how do we create this operating system for businesses so that the founders, the executives do not have to take a lot of time out of their day to do something that is back office and operational, so that they can focus more on what their actual product and what their actual business building requires, right? So that is the reason we are trusted by our customers. We work with companies like Scrum Launch, Karate, and Tensor, and a bunch of other companies as well. And to us, it's really meaningful that our customers consider us to be an extension of their team because we understand their businesses so well. Now, that is the nature of a product like Niural, where it's always great when your customer feels like it has been custom made for them, even though this is such a scalable solution. That is why we have built so many different components that will help you handle all of your payments and compliance and hiring needs in one platform really, really easily. So I'll pause there, and I guess we can take in questions. Tina, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You covered so much, but I think it'd be really incredible if we could highlight a few points and then we can wrap up. But of course, if this conversation inspires anybody's questions, feel free to drop it in the Discord section of our chat and we'll get you answers asynchronously. But, some of the questions I have are, what features of Niural would you say wouldn't be possible without blockchain? I think that would be really important to highlight.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea around real-time payroll and real-time payments globally, right? If you think about how real-time payroll in the US works, right? There is existence of recently products like FedNow, right, which Niural supports, that we are able to do real-time payroll in fiat as well through our integration with multiple different banks that support FedNow related payments. So we have a pretty solid infrastructure there as well. But real-time payments, being able to do that globally, it doesn't exist currently, right? Think about almost 200 countries around the world, right? Different kinds of payment systems, different kinds of legal and compliance requirements, different kinds of proclivity to how they interact with money coming from cross-border, right? Like China is not that friendly to the US, right? Like Venezuela has its own policies. Russia is sanctioned, right? You want to be able to make sure that you're hiring properly and you're able to pay properly while complying with regulations. A lot of the times for crypto, it is important to kind of maintain that ethos of decentralization. But how do you do that in collaboration with real world laws and regulations, right? So for us, we built these parallel rails to be able to do real-time payroll for both scenarios, right? If you're doing real-time payroll for fiat, there are certain kinds of rails you use, but those rails are not available in every country. However, payroll in crypto, if you send Ethereum from a wallet to another wallet, it happens in a couple of seconds, and it does not matter where you are around the world, right? Yeah. And then so, as long as we maintain a compliance layer, we know who it is going to, there are, background checks involved and things like that. And then, we're abiding by all of the sanctions related laws and things like that. As long as we know that, and that is kind of cleared out, then real-time payroll, having access to your paycheck in real time, is a reality for every single person in our platform, right? That is something that regular money movement does not allow, right? So that's one feature. The second is, I think, a lot more connected to the needs of a changing macroeconomic environment, right? So if you are somebody who is in, let's say, Argentina or Nigeria or some other parts of Africa where there's a lot of kind of currency inflation happening or currency volatility happening, or just like, the government or the politics is unstable, things like that, right? In those cases, you have two options: receive money in local currency, right, and be subject to the same exact volatility that the rest of the country has, or get access to a digital dollar, right? Now, everybody around the world wants access to a USD account, right? But because of existing laws and regulations and things like that, they, even when they desire, they do not have the ability to get access to a USD account. However, through adoption of digital dollars through stable coins, you will be able to have access to digital dollars itself without having to experience that currency volatility, right? And so that's a very different kind of economic freedom, or in general, kind of strength that kind of powers global workforce management, is this idea that we are helping people around the world kind of safeguard themselves against currency volatility, inflation risk, and just become more financially empowered in general. And that is something that I think is a really, really cool component of crypto that is often overlooked, because crypto is so speculative and there's just so much exciting things happening in crypto all the time.
Yeah.
But the more boring adoption of crypto is through stablecoins, and that is something that I think could not happen if it was just regular dollars.
I love that we're basically going back to the original use case of crypto, which is payments, cross-border payments, and then of course as an inflation hedge, right? In some ways, which I think your answer also speaks a lot to, like people may want to get paid in crypto, even if they are maybe a Web 2 company, right? So I think one last question, and then we move to the close, which is like, do you envision a world in which Web 2 companies actually adopt crypto payments?
Yes. And that's a great question. Thank you for asking. We are already seeing that happen. Right now, crypto obviously requires a little bit of there's an educational learning curve in terms of understanding anything in blockchain. So what we see is it's happening indirectly. The adoption is happening indirectly through for Web 2 companies, because we see day in and day out, Web 2 companies hire internationally, right? So let's say they hire somebody in Brazil, Argentina, and Thailand, whatever, right? The contractors that they hire actually are demanding payment in crypto, even though the Web 2 company itself is not, they don't have anything to do with crypto. They're not crypto native. They don't understand anything related to crypto, right? So then they come asking us, hey, this particular contractor wants to get paid in USDC. Is this something that, what do we do, right? And then voila, right? Niural has that solution already integrated into the platform. For Web 2 companies, they don't have to worry about going and getting crypto from somewhere to pay to their contractors. They can simply pay us in fiat. And because of our integration with on and off ramp providers, we're able to just do it within 2 seconds in the platform, right? So that adoption of crypto payments by Web 2 companies is already happening organically in the platform, because it is guided by a lot of the workforce that they're expanding to. And I don't think that kind of adoption would happen if there was more friction in the process, right? Let's say if we didn't have an integrated on and off ramp and we required them to set up a wallet and, get crypto from an exchange and things like that, then there's no way they would have gone through that process. They would have probably just kind of not hired that contractor at all, or, come up with some sort of hackneyed solution there that is just not scalable, right? Sure. But because Niural's integrated platform is able to do that, we see that adoption just happening quickly and organically. So I'm a big believer in Web 2 companies, adopting these kinds of payment methods and slowly getting more educated in the blockchain ecosystem, not because they are actively trying to, but because the wave is taking them there, right?
Yeah, I love what you've articulated and what Neural's building, right? Because you're basically saying you're building for this like new way of working that crypto is inspiring, but simultaneously, because in the past, like payroll companies have been so hard to disrupt. By having this technology that you're building for these Web3 companies, you're able to sort of bridge the gap for Web2 companies and provide the same levels of, cheap transaction, cross-border transaction costs, like financial access and all these like benefits of crypto to these Web2 companies. So, okay, we are going to close the session, but usually before we conclude, we ask our guests if they have any thoughts or guidance they want to share with our community, either for people interested in contributing to the ecosystem or just general words of advice.
Yeah, well, if you're thinking about building any kind of company, product, whatever, I love builders. Being a builder is hard, but it's very rewarding. So kudos to anybody that is thinking about, getting started on this journey. Just understand that it's not going to be always easy, but nothing, that changes the world is easy, right? So have that, kind of mentality about just, you have to be ready for the grind. And then second, as you build, especially if somebody is in this audience, you're already thinking ahead to, a world-changing technology, a technology that has the ability to kind of transcend all of the, kind of technological barriers that we have had, experienced in the past. It is important to build, something that is long-lasting. Right. So make sure that you're doing things compliantly. Do not take shortcuts. Right. You can build the most basic MVP, but definitely protect yourself from a regulatory compliance, those kinds of perspectives. As somebody who works in the compliance ecosystem, that would be my number one kind of advice, because there are tools like Niural who can help you do that. Right. So do not take that risk. And second, whatever you're building, just know that you're going to have to be very gritty and iterative about what you built, because the world changes, bull markets, bear markets, they come and go, but you have to be the one to persist. So take an iterative approach to building would be my advice.
Well, thank you so much for your time as well as your advice. As always, we share a recap of this session via our newsletter, which is the UETH Digest. And then a few weeks after the workshop goes out, we will also create a UETH blog piece. So keep an eye out on our comms on Twitter and Discord for these content pieces, as well as for any announcements for our next workshop, as well as community spaces. But thank you so much again for your time today, Nami. I think you have such excellent advice, such excellent experience. And so thank you for breaking out a piece of your day, your very busy day with us.
Oh, it has been a true pleasure. And, really, I'm happy to be a resource for you and anybody here. So, it's a true pleasure on my part. Thank you for having me.